Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the staggering complexities of the Los Angeles homelessness crisis, specifically zoning in on Skid Row. Look, we all hear the headlines, right? We see the statistics, but what is actually driving this situation on the ground? To really wrap our heads around this crisis, we have to start by zooming out and looking at the sheer scale of the economy surrounding it. It is literally a story of extremes, and what I want you to take away from this is how massive systemic structures are constantly clashing with deeply personal human struggles. Okay, let's dive right in. To understand the gravity of Skid Row, you first have to grasp California's immense wealth. As of 2024, California's economy actually surpassed Japan's. Seriously. That makes it the fourth largest economy in the entire world. It's basically operating like its own independent nation with a GDP of over $3 trillion. We are talking about unprecedented, record-breaking prosperity here. But right in the middle of all that immense wealth, literally down the street from gleaming billion-dollar skyscrapers, there are over 6,000 people living in tents and on the streets in just one specific downtown neighborhood. And here's the wild part. Billions of tax dollars have been spent since 2021 to try and fix this, yet the money often seems to just vanish into this complex web without making a visible dent on the pavement. The contrast is absolutely staggering. On one side of the city, you've got the famous Hollywood sign, celebrity culture, and extreme luxury. But there is this almost invisible line in Los Angeles. The second you cross it, everything changes. All that extreme wealth instantly gives way to Skid Row. 50 concentrated blocks, roughly 1 square mile of raw, extreme poverty. Section 1. The reality of the streets. So to really understand this crisis, we have to look past the spreadsheets and look at the actual human beings living on the pavement. You know, a lot of people treat homelessness like a monolith, like it's just one type of person. But the reality completely shatters that idea. The streets are filled with a massively diverse population. You've got military veterans lacking post-war support, ex-convicts with literally nowhere to return to, and everyday workers who are evicted after losing a job. And then, alongside them, you have individuals with severe mental illnesses who've been abandoned by medical institutions, and migrant families desperately seeking work. Take Catherine's story, for example. Her situation perfectly captures how incredibly easy it is to fall into this and how nearly impossible it is to get out. She's been trapped on these streets for over 15 months. She's actively applying for housing, she's navigating all the endless paperwork, but she consistently finds out she just doesn't qualify. She is quite literally stuck in a bureaucratic holding pattern while living on the pavement. Then you look at the tent next door, and there's an entirely different reality unfolding. We see migrant families, like a Venezuelan father who shared his family's harrowing journey. They survived trekking through the jungle, they endured being kidnapped in Mexico, and they finally made it to LA. Now, they're living in tents on Skid Row, desperately trying to find daily work while living in constant fear of deportation. They are just trying to survive. Moving to Section 2, root causes and chronic instability. Let's look at how all of this builds into a chronic cycle that a simple apartment key just cannot immediately fix. Housing is obviously absolutely crucial, right? But simply putting a roof over someone's head doesn't magically erase the intense trauma or the chemical dependencies developed on the street. Beyond the lack of affordable housing, open drug use and untreated mental illness create these massive, invisible brick walls to recovery, and the environment is intensely tolerant of it. For instance, you will literally see young couples driving nice cars down to Skid Row just to smoke crystal meth because they know they won't be stopped. There are needle disposal boxes right on the street to prevent the spread of disease. This intense daily reality makes breaking the cycle incredibly difficult. The psychology behind this was captured perfectly by a formerly homeless man who worked as a cook. He pointed out that if you just pick someone up, give them a shower, and put them in a nice apartment without treating their mind, you actually haven't solved the problem at all. Because the trauma is so deeply ingrained, they'll essentially recreate the street inside that apartment. He said they might even pitch a tent right in their own living room. Which brings us to Section 3, the business of homelessness. So with billions of tax dollars spent by the state in recent years, why does the problem seemingly keep getting worse? Where is all that money actually going? We really have to look at this impartially because the debate is fierce. On one side, critics and frustrated locals argue that the current system is actually enabling the crisis to grow. On the other side, frontline workers and nonprofits argue that the entire overarching system, from healthcare to affordable housing to the economy, is structurally broken, leaving them to basically just put a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. Let's look at the first perspective through the eyes of a local business owner who's been operating there for 20 years. From his point of view, the constant influx of free resources, combined with California's famously beautiful weather, acts like a giant magnet. Furthermore, he points out a really controversial dynamic. He believes nonprofits are financially incentivized by government grants to maintain their operations and keep the money flowing, rather than solving the issue permanently. Adding to this, it's frequently reported that other counties will actually transport and literally dump their homeless populations directly into Skid Row. Now let's flip the perspective. Section 4. Inside the Midnight Mission. To explore the other side of this debate, let's step inside the Midnight Mission. This is one of the absolute largest organizations operating on Skid Row, stepping in exactly where government safety nets fail. And the scale of their intervention is massive. We're talking 300 residential beds and an astounding 1 million meals served every single year right on Skid Row. But they aren't just handing out food. They offer a super strict year-long drug and alcohol recovery program. They even provide an education center where people can learn Microsoft Office to prepare to re-enter the workforce. Basically, they are there waiting for individuals to hit what they call a moment of clarity so they can get clean and completely change their lives. And for this nonprofit, the root cause is crystal clear. A representative from the mission stated something profound. When you strip away absolutely everything else, the true cause of homelessness is loneliness. It's a fundamental breakdown of human connection. When that social safety net of community and family totally breaks, and you combine that with a severe lack of affordable housing and failing mental health systems, people fall right into the streets. Which leaves us with Section 5. Is there a solution? As we pull back and look at the whole picture, the billions spent, the nonprofits working around the clock, the daily grueling struggles on the pavement, we're left with a pretty sobering reality. Despite the massive budgets and all the political promises, the brutal math remains exactly the same. Frontline workers will tell you, every single day, the influx of newly unhoused individuals completely exceeds the number of people successfully transitioning into permanent housing. Basically, the system is frantically bailing water out of a boat that has a massive hole in the bottom. Because of this, the frustration on the streets is just palpable. You can hear it in the voice of a man who has lived on the exact same Skid Row sidewalk for 13 years. He set up a tent that he sarcastically calls the White House, saying he does it because the government just isn't doing its job properly. After over a decade sleeping on the pavement, his sense of total abandonment by the system is complete. So, I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on. In a state that literally boasts the fourth largest economy on planet Earth, a place of unimaginable technological and cultural wealth, how do we finally bridge the gap between systemic billion-dollar funding and the very real, very human tragedy unfolding every single day on the pavement of Skid Row? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and let's keep figuring out how we build systems that truly support human dignity.